to them in depth yet. And Math Kit 1. Math Kit 1, that is the product that was the first one I used in ShillerLearning many moons ago. I switched into the math program with my kids back in 2004, long time ago. Okay, it is officially Tuesday at 2, so we are going to go ahead and get started with our Language Arts Kit B tour. For those of you new to homeschooling or ShillerLearning, we are part of the nonprofit Rising Stars Foundation, and our goal is to help students of all abilities and budgets get the benefits of a Montessori-based personalized education in order to maximize their potential. We support parents and educators with no lesson prep, math, and language arts resources, as well as geography, sensory, grace, and courtesy that will enrich your homeschool no matter what curriculum you are using. Do check out the ShillerLearning blog. If you go to explore.shillermath.com and go to the homeschool blog, Explore, I think you'll find a lot of resources that are helpful. We are Montessori based, but you do not need to know Montessori in order to use the program. Now, we'll be taking a look at all of the books in there. So Maria Montessori tells us about the importance of language. Not only does it fuse men into groups and nations, but it is the central point of difference between the human species and all others. Language lies at the root of that transformation of the environment that we call civilization. So it is very fundamental to our interacting with society. As Larry Schiller tells us, communicating means being able to speak, listen, read, and write well. In ShillerLearning Language Arts, students learn more than just the technical aspects of speaking, listening, reading, and writing. They're also taught to think about how they and others may affect change in the world and themselves using language arts, and really promotes self-awareness. Those are the goals of the ShillerLearning Language Arts program, and it is going to give your child a very strong foundation in language arts skills of all kinds. So today we are taking a deep dive into the ShillerLearning Language Arts Kit B. This is generally going to be for students in 1st through 4th grades. We do have a couple of options. And the first that you're seeing on the screen here is the physical kit. And so with that, you're getting the actual physical lesson books, as well as the physical readers and the writing the alphabet and the 28 language arts song downloads. You'll also be getting the manipulatives that are used with that program. You'll have some, and I just bumped my mouse there. You'll get some cards for creating word cards, the beautiful wooden grammar symbols. We're going to talk in depth about using those, as well as the letter pad that the student will be using to create their own movable alphabet. Now, in the earlier language arts kit, there is the Movable Alphabet. That's from the Language Arts Kit A. And if you are not familiar with the Montessori movable alphabet, now that is not something that is expressly called for in the Language Arts Kit B. But if you have it from Language Arts Kit A, you can go ahead and use that along with the activities. And if you have a very young reader who's ready to get started in Language Arts B at a pre-K or kindergarten age, that might be one of the materials that you would like to include from that earlier kit. All of our materials are available individually. So if you wanted to add the movable alphabet to your Language Arts B, you could. It's not necessary though. They will be creating a movable alphabet in their own handwriting. This is just one of my favorite materials. You get 5 of each consonant, 10 of each vowel. Those are color coded for vowels and consonants. Really helps the vowel patterns pop out of the words for you. But in Language Arts Kit B, they'll be creating a movable alphabet using letter tiles in their own handwriting. You do also get the binder with a variety, you see that behind me there, with score sheets for different word games, 3x3, 4x4, and different book report guides. We'll be talking about that. So Language Arts B is all of those physical materials along with the song downloads. And yes, there is music, just like with our math. In the language arts, you have a variety of songs that the kids will enjoy, even outside of lesson time. Okay, so we've got the physical kit. Again, all of those items are available individually as well, but with our kits, not only are you getting all of the physical items, but you are getting the digital content. We do have a digital edition available, so you have an option for Language Arts Kit B digital. With this, you are getting the PDF downloads of all of the printed material that we talked about that is included with the physical kit. So, you're getting the download of the writing the alphabet, you're getting the downloads of the 4 lesson books, as well as the 5 pieces of assigned reading. So you get the PDFs of all of those. You can put them onto any device. PDF files, if you use those with a PDF annotator app, it allows you to draw, write, color, type right into the file. So it eliminates the need for a lot of printing. With the PDF files, you can also on the screen go ahead and use those grammar symbols. And again, we'll dive into how to use those. So you're getting the PDFs of all the printed material, again, the song downloads. But if you are getting that physical kit, you get all of this digital content included and you get lifetime access to that. With all of the ShillerLearning kits, they are a one and done purchase that works for the whole family, whether you have 2 or 10 kids. You will never need to purchase any additional consumables to be able to use that with everyone. Of course, we have additional books available for purchase if that is your preference, but a lot of people are simply happy with the downloads. Okay, so just covering a few generalities about the program. One of the questions that we get asked very often at convention, and I do hope that today's session gets to be, interactive and is like stepping into a booth at convention. That is one of the things that I really love doing here at ShillerLearning, is getting to go to conventions and meet in person with families, talk about the program, get to address any questions, and talk about, where your child is at, what developmentally appropriate tools we have that can help transition them to that next level, and do so in a way that is going to ignite their natural thirst for knowledge, as opposed to kind of quashing that with things that kids find dry and uninteresting and turn them off from learning. But one of those frequently asked questions is, how long does a lesson take? Well, with Schiller Learning, there is no set time for how long a lesson takes. You'll find that the lessons are of varying length as well as varying difficulty. So you might find a couple of short, easy lessons followed by a longer, more challenging. And that structure is going to help keep your child interested and engaged and driven to moving on from activity to activity. So we are not giving you a learning plan that says, oh, it's the 35th day of school. Johnny is going to do XYZ today. It is going to be different for every child. That's one of the reasons that we homeschool. So with Schiller Learning, we simply do a time recommendation, starting with 15 minutes a day for a 3 or 4 year old. And we do start language arts right at 3 years old. Along with that movable alphabet, one of the other things that you're getting is a tray, and we fill this. Again, this is that one of the materials from Language Arts Kit A, but we put quinoa in this, and that comes in that kit. And at 3 years old, kids love working with that movable alphabet. There's a song for every single letter of the alphabet and fun physical activities that go with it, the tracing in the quinoa. And that is another activity, by the way, that if you have a precocious reader, that is one of the sensory elements that you can include from that Language Arts Kit A work with Language Arts Kit B, because we don't want to, simply for the sensory elements and some of those multisensory tools, keep a child in Language Arts Kit A who's already reading chapter books. They're not going to be um, really engaged and challenged by that work. So we want to provide, again, something that is developmentally appropriate. You can add those sensory elements from Language Arts Kit A to your Language Arts Kit B work, and we can help you with that. So starting with at 15 minutes a day for a 3 or 4 year old, and simply adding 5 minutes a day for each year of age after that. And then however many lessons your child does in that amount of time is what's right for them. And we even have learning management tools, and you will get some of those in your 3-ring binder that's behind me, along with those tracking sheets um, for the word game score sheets, as well as the book report guides. And they are also printed right in the back of your lesson books. We tried to make this as convenient and easy for you as possible. This is such a simple learning management tool. Don't be tempted to overlook it. Very easy to use. Simply jotting down date, minutes worked, the list of lessons completed, and then a very important column is your list of lessons to be revisited. So Schiller Learning is going to help you find that Goldilocks zone of repetition. Not too much, not too little, just right. We don't want to bore a child by drilling and practicing something that they have already mastered. Conversely, we don't want to move them on in the curriculum and move away from a concept that they still need to have additional practice in order to master that skill. And so by, when they are not solid on something, making note of that in that column for lessons to be revisited, simply move on to other things. And then periodically, maybe every 2 or 3 days, you're going to add that back into the math work. Excuse me, not math, language arts work until it is mastered. And then once they've mastered that, we're simply going to cross that off and it drops out of our workflow. So with that, as students are able to pick up on concepts more quickly, they will move at an accelerated pace. But when they need that extra time and repetition in order to master something, they will be afforded that. Also, the goal of every lesson is that the child achieves both competency and closure. If you've been with ShillerLearning, you've heard us talk about this before. Larry Schiller has an excellent 4-part video series about those 3 outcomes of the lesson. But basically, either your child achieves both of those, they have competency and closure, they get it, they're ready to move on, or they have competency but not closure. That's an important one to remember, because with that, sometimes it can be tempting to move your child on even though they want to continue to practice something. We see they've gotten it, but they still want to do that same thing over and over again. It's important to empower your child to get closure at their individual pace. The third possible outcome is they don't have competency, so of course don't have closure. With this, there's an A and B situation. It either just goes right on that list of columns, the column for lessons to be revisited, or sometimes when we see that the child doesn't have competency or closure, they also get frustrated. And we want to avoid allowing a child's boredom or frustration to build. So we offer to them to move on to something else. Sometimes that child will want to continue to work on that. If you want to learn more about competency and closure, there is a white paper that is linked in your educator helper section of your customer downloads. And again, there is that 4-part video series that Larry Schiller has on our YouTube channel. Be sure to subscribe to the ShillerLearning YouTube channel. Lots of great content on there. You will pick up helpful hints about not just math and language arts, but also, parenting and educational philosophy in general. Alrighty, so our language arts kit B, just like kit A, is a comprehensive English language arts program. You have everything that you need. You're not going to have to choose a separate handwriting program, a separate vocabulary, spelling, all of these different pieces and figure out how they fit together. It is an all in one. You've got that phonics, reading, spelling, composition, handwriting, speech, touch typing, vocabulary, and even additional things topics that you would not find in a standard language arts program. One of those being goal setting and principled thinking. And I'm actually going to stop the screen share here because we are going to take a look at some of the activities from the 4 lesson books that are in Language Arts Kit B. So first off, one of the things I'm going to point out to you is the way that our language arts books are numbered are a little different than your usual lettering or numbering of books. Books 1, 2, 3, and 4 are found in Language Arts Kit A. Those 4 books generally are a 2-year program, pre-K, kindergarten, or 2 years of preschool, for most children. And that's going to be when they are learning their letter sounds, letter names, beginning to blend, simple short vowel words, spelling those, beginning grammar, noun, verb, article, adjective, storytelling skills, seasons, continents. It's a very, again, a very rich language arts program that's going to have some things that you won't find in others. So in Language Arts Kit B, we have lesson books 5, 6, 7, and 8. Those 4 lesson books are generally going to comprise a 4-year program for most students. Again, the goal with a Montessori-based approach is that we are doing personalized learning. The student is moving through as they master the material, so it's not necessarily going to last every student 4 years. Some will finish it more quickly, some will uh, need additional time in order to master all of those skills, and that's okay. The important thing is that we move them through as they master the material, not worrying about grade level. But one of the things that I wanted to show you in lesson book 5 is that the very first thing that they're doing is taking a look at goal setting. What are goals? Why do we have them? And what are some of the goals that you would like to create for yourself? So, again, things that are really going to help your student become self aware, not just black and white academically, but in things like life goals and principled thinking. So that is going to be in the language arts program. Again, something you're not going to find in your standard program. Along with goal setting and principled thinking, you are going to see that there are eye movement exercises to help increase reading speed. And I have some of those marked here. So you've got the eye movement exercises to help increase reading speed, and what they are doing is developing important reading muscle. You will see those throughout the lesson books. Now, if you happen to want to work on a particular concept or with a particular manipulative, in the lesson books, you are going to find a concept index as well as a manipulative index. One of the things that I like about our bindings, by the way, is that lay flat and that you can turn the pages around. It makes it really easy for the student writing in the book that it can either lay completely flat or be turned around. But you've got that materials index as well as the concept index, so that if your child wants to work with, say, the grammar symbols, you're going to be able to find all of the lessons that use that manipulative. Or if you want to work on a particular skill, say it's typing, well, then, we can see the lessons that cover that in this book. So there's also, throughout the Schiller program, a lot of convenient built-in flexibility. Okay, and so you'll see that this is one of those eye movement exercises, and they're going, it steps you through the ShillerLearning language arts curriculum, just like the math is completely scripted. So if you are using a manipulative, it'll show you that. But with this one, it's simply stepping you through, guiding your child with the instructions, and then they're actually using the dots on the page for doing that peripheral vision practice. So you've got that goal setting, principled thinking, the eye movement exercises to increase reading speed. And then there's something else that I don't think I have ever seen in another program, and that is the PEG system of short-term memory. That is a skill that not only will your child find it helpful with language arts, but it is going to be great for them in high school as well as college. Sometimes when we see the people on TV and they have these amazing memory skills, and someone can give them just a random list of things and they can instantly remember those in order. It is generally the PEG system that they are using in order to remember those. And you'll see that in the Schiller Learning Language Arts program. So we do have, again, this is for generally going to be for first through fourth grade students. We do have a lot of middle school students who use the digital kit as an economical way of supplementing another language arts program that they're using for middle school with areas that they aren't so solid. A lot of middle school students will use the grammar activities or those things like the goal setting, principle thinking, eye movement, at short term memory, the Greek alphabet. That is another thing that is taught in the Schiller Learning Language Arts Kit B, as well as your usual language arts topics. Another thing that you'll find are some basic phrases in international languages. And being aware of world languages is an important part of being able to communicate effectively, and also adds additional understanding to the English language, because of course the English language, it draws from so many others. So the phonics that is included, you will find throughout those four lesson books, 5, 6, 7, and 8. The structure of our phonics is a little different because we are not teaching hard and fast rules. We don't say, okay, the rule for IE is this, and then, oh, but there is this entirely long list of exceptions. We look at patterns because in reality, there aren't rules that are hard and fast. So there are patterns, and they'll see that, okay, in this list of words, this grouping of letters says this. Whereas in this other group of words, those same letters may say something different, or that sound has different letter combinations that make it. So for kids who are troubled by all of those exceptions to language arts rules, they will like this approach better. It causes less anxiety when we teach them a rule, and then there's going to be all of those exceptions to that rule. With the phonics instruction, there are also sight words because, of course, with the English language, you need that combination of a strong phonetic foundation coupled with sight words. And then the spelling is done very holistically along with the phonics. So as they are learning new letter combinations or word endings, groupings, they will also be learning how to spell those. So that is done very holistically, both the spelling as well as the vocabulary. We'll touch on that a little bit more. So keep that in mind, that as you are doing the phonics and reading portion, that the spelling is done along with that. And then of course, those two activities, the phonics and the spelling, reinforce and help each of those skills. So in the language arts B, you're going to get 5 pieces of assigned reading. And those are a George Washington biography. And with this, this is a really nice story. There's an introduction in the front of all of our books about that, the author, and a little background there, and then the story itself. So you've got the George Washington biography. You have McGuffey's. This is a homeschool favorite, classic McGuffey's Eclectic Primer, the revised edition. And in the primer, there are the diacritical markings. And that is something that your child will learn in the ShillerLearning language arts curriculum, is how to read those, which is a skill that, again, not every program is teaching and will help your child in many different situations down the road. So you've got your classic McGuffey's, the story hour, great compilation of short stories. One of the things that you will notice about the story hour, now there are illustrations in both of those that we just looked at, as well as with the Rudyard Kipling's Just So Stories. And behind me is the classic Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. They all have illustrations. In the story hour, this collection of short stories, you will see that there are absolutely no illustrations, and that is by design. When you are doing literature selections for your child, it is important to include some selections that do not have illustrations, because we want the child to be able to be completely responsible for paying attention to those words, and then taking those words and creating a mind picture with those, and not having details filled in with the illustrations. That's actually going to help your child when they are then doing composition and taking a mind picture that they have in their heads and trying to put that to words. So the story hour, that's going to fill that need for you. And then again, you've got that Rudyard Kipling's Just So Stories, as well as the Alice's Adventures in Wonderland behind us. So these are the 5 pieces of assigned reading. You will find that they are used in a number of ways. For reading instruction, literary analysis. Your child will be writing book reports, and in each of the 4 lesson books, 5, 6, 7, and 8, they will do increasingly complex literary analysis in those books. And so you'll see that there are book report guides both in the lesson books as well as in your 3-ring binder. You have additional sheets of that. And so this is an example of the book report guide that is in lesson book 8, and that is 2 pages of information that your child is going to be pulling out when they're doing their analysis of that piece of literature. When they're starting off in book 5, the guide is only a single page. So with each level, they will do increasingly complex literary analysis. So those pieces of assigned reading are used for reading instruction, literary analysis, learning different writing techniques and grammar, literary devices. They will all be used for multiple purposes. And you'll even see sometimes right in the lesson book, you'll see an excerpt of one of those reading selections, and it will, for example, instruct the student to find all of the adjectives in that selection. Okay, so we've got all of the unusual topics, the standard topics such as the phonics, the reading, the literature. One note, those are your pieces of assigned literature. And then in addition to those, we want you and your student to choose as many additional reading selections as possible. We are not giving you an entire list that is going to fill all of your possible reading time, because we want a mix of, yes, great classic pieces of literature, but then things that are of interest to either your family or your individual student. When students are reading about topics that interest them and they are passionate about, they are going to become passionate lifelong readers. So be sure to, empower your child to make reading selections. Now that can be done within some parameters. Maybe you come up with a list of things that you know your child would be interested in, and then from within that structure, they're choosing which ones they want to either get started with or use. Okay, moving on to grammar. And our star manipulative of language arts kit B is the grammar box. So in this box here, sometimes people think that this is a math manipulative that was mistakenly included in the language arts kit. That is not the case. This is indeed a grammar box. You will see 9 compartments with 9 different shapes. In here is a shape that represents every single part of speech. So you have noun, let's see, you've got noun, pronoun, adjective, article. And if you'll notice, those are all triangles of different sizes and shapes. Those are all noun-related parts of speech. Your noun-related parts of speech are all triangles. So the shape actually helps to reinforce how those parts of speech are related. And then you've got the verb is your larger red circle, and then adverb is going to be a smaller circle. Again, related shape, related part of speech. Then we've got preposition, conjunction, and interjection. They will start off just identifying nouns in a sentence. And your lesson book is going to show exactly how to do that. So just like if you have the ShillerLearning math curriculum, the language arts is scripted in that same style so that you will open up and it's going to tell you, okay, today we're going to be using the grammar symbols, and then it tells you exactly what to say in quotes. And in this instance, we're showing the child in the book first that the black triangle is the grammar symbol for a noun. And then it's even going to tell you, okay, now point to the box of grammar symbols. And then the student is going to be able to write in the book, place those grammar symbols to identify all of the nouns in the sentence. And so in this case, and now I'm not going to be able to put them all in because I want to stand this up so you can see it. But for example, we would identify bill and home and shoes with those black triangles, placing all of those. And there are multiples of each of those symbols. So they start off just identifying nouns, and you'll see that there's plenty of space both above and below so that they are able to fit all of those. They start with just identifying nouns in the sentence, working up to identifying all 9 parts of speech with the Montessori grammar symbols. And then what happens with those is that the student is going to identify grammar patterns from having seen the patterns with the shapes. So even something ordinarily abstract like grammar, we are able to teach that in a very multi-sensory, concrete way. There are also songs for different parts of speech along with different phonics songs. So you are getting 28 language arts songs with the language arts B. One of the other things that I really enjoy about the ShillerLearning Language Arts program is that you'll notice that the text that the student is reading when doing their lessons isn't always in print. The ShillerLearning Language Arts curriculum does include handwriting. We are teaching both print as well as cursive. There is a Writing the Alphabet book, which you see here, and this teaches print and cursive together. Now, this book is used in conjunction with the lesson books. So the lesson book will tell you, when to add one of these lessons, and then there will be additional spaces in the book for the student to practice printing, doing cursive, also typing. And when they are practicing writing, they'll also practice typing words. But the lesson book, I deviated a little bit there. So we're teaching both print and cursive right from the start. And cursive is actually easier for your student to learn when they do it from the beginning, as opposed to having your child spend a few years mastering print, which is a short, choppy movement with the pencil, and then going back to what was natural to them in the first place. What happens when we put a pencil in our child's hand is that they will do a doodly, flowy movement with that, which is what cursive is. So they will have an easier time with that, having done it from the very beginning. And there are actually people who only teach their child official instruction in cursive, and the print they will just pick up naturally from the reading material. And do not be tempted to exclude cursive from your child's writing instruction. The brain science on cursive is amazing. When you write something in cursive, if you're taking your class notes, again, keeping that eye towards the future in high school or college, if you're taking those notes in cursive, you are going to have longer term storage and easier retrieval of that information than taking those same notes in any other fashion, whether it is printing them, typing them, or recording them. Of course, you can still do those other things, but when we write something in cursive, that information is being stored in parts of the brain that it would not go otherwise. It's also a method of writing that is crossing the midline, and that's beneficial for a number of things. And so not only is the student learning to write in cursive, but when they do things like practicing grammar. Now, in this case, the grammar symbol for a verb is that the red circle. And then they're going to place those red circles right in the book, identifying those verbs. And in this case, the sentences that they are reading are in cursive. So your child will be learning to both write as well as read in cursive. And we know how important that is when it comes to historical documents. Speaking of historical documents, one of those other activities that is included with the ShillerLearning curriculum that you're not going to find somewhere else is the use of historical documents, such as the preamble of the Constitution. And as a family, you will write a family preamble modeled on the preamble of the Constitution to reflect your family values. So that was another activity that you're not going to see in a standard your average language arts program. So this is that activity here. It does take you through. It's a couple of pages where you are doing that. This activity, by the way, I do recommend that when you're doing your final draft that you do that on a nice piece of paper and either best handwriting on good paper or printing that out onto like a parchment looking, and it makes a really nice framed keepsake. Okay, so, and we talked about handwriting, how it is both print and cursive, and they are indeed learning touch typing and practicing typing words as they are practicing print and cursive. And again, with it being a comprehensive program, you'll see that in the lesson books, there are simply a variety of lessons of topics as you are going lesson to lesson. And here is another one of those where you're practicing the proper finger positions and learning how to type the numbers without looking. And our kids are on devices at earlier and earlier ages. And so they are familiar with typing, but they often aren't typing correctly and will start bad habits that are going to make it more difficult for them from from an early age. So by having some a formal introduction to what touch typing is, the different keys on the board, as well as the different types of keyboards, it's going to help them be more effective. And I'm sorry, I see a couple of questions banking up here. Let me just take a look at those. Okay, so as far as people not being very aware of the Schiller Language Arts curriculum, the ShillerLearning Language Arts was a new product for us back in 2016. So ShillerLearning did start as a math curriculum back in 2002. I found it 2 years later. Well, I switched into it 2 years later in 2004. But so for decades, ShillerLearning has been a popular math curriculum, and customers had asked for years for Larry Schiller to please do for language arts what you did for math, which is, you know, taking that Montessori method, which is usually not all that easy to implement at home. It takes a lot of money, a lot of time for preparation. You know, you're not sure which of those thousands of dollars of manipulatives you need to use in the home. And so what Schiller Learning did is work with the educators at the Princeton Center for Teacher Education to select manipulatives that can be used in the home. It's not the entire Montessori experience that you would get in a classroom because it's cost prohibitive for most of us to spend thousands of dollars on a single subject for just manipulatives. And then having to come up with all of the activities, figuring out how to use those. So it's that scripted approach. A reviewer, I thought she described it beautifully as Montessori distilled down to the essentials. If there's another Montessori material that you love and have the resources and time to add that, that's great, but you don't have to. You have all of what you need. And taking that, putting it into a scripted curriculum so that it's just open and go. There's nothing for you to figure out. There were some other Montessori based programs for home, but what they did was it was a book basically teaching you about the method, and then you had to come up, and there were a number of programs with that structure, and then you needed to still come up with all of the activities. With this, it's just that open and go, just like the math. And so Larry Schiller in 2016, in response to that customer demand, came out with the language arts program, both language arts kits A and B. Language arts A, again, that's going to be generally pre-K kindergarten for most kids, and then language arts B is first through fourth. So it's giving you that really solid foundation in English language arts, communication skills, talking about what communication is, and different ways of communicating. Also raises awareness of how we communicate with body language and the importance of being aware of the things that we sometimes unintentionally communicate through that body language. Okay. Oh, note on the grammar, just want to back up to that. So we've got all the different parts of speech. We have irregular, regular verbs, infinitives, and yes, in our writing instruction, we are indeed including the Oxford comma. So if you are an Oxford comma fan, there is a post. If you have not followed Schiller Learning on social media, I encourage you to do that. We are at Schiller Learning. And I was just going to bring those kits back up as we wrap up on that so that you can see those again. But there was a very funny post that was shared about the importance of the Oxford comma and how its use can dramatically impact the meaning of a sentence. In the composition, it looks at both fiction as well as nonfiction, different styles of writing. One of the ways that it looks at composition is through the story mountain and that visualization of building up a story, the climax, and coming back down. Yes, it does. You do not need a separate writing curriculum aside from this. So this is that comprehensive all-in-one language arts. The vocabulary, by the way, that is also done very holistically and respectful of where your child is at. So, you know, as you are reading through the different literature selections, you'll be pulling out Your child will identify vocabulary words that they do not know and research those. And we do, again, have those cards that they will use for creating word cards. Do not overlook, by the way, the importance of reading to your child from a very young age. That we also have a blog post about the benefits of family read alouds and how, if you're reading to your child from a very young age, that is one of the best ways to impact their vocabulary, because even before they start reading, they will have been exposed to so many words through literature that they would not have been just through conversation. So reading to your child on a regular basis from a young age is really important to their outcome. And that also, by the way, being exposed to those words in advance of reading is going to help your child become a better reader, because if they are trying to decode a word that they've never even been exposed to, they're going to have that much more of a difficult time with that. So, great advice in that blog post on the family read aloud also. So you do not need separate writing program or a separate spelling or vocabulary. This is indeed all in one. With that language arts kit B, again, there are two options. Everything is available individually. You have the physical kit. The physical kit also includes the downloads, and you do also have a purely digital option, which has, by the way, printable grammar symbols. So if you don't have the physical set, and these are a beautiful wooden set, but in that digital kit, there is a nice printable option. We do recommend for pretty much all of the printable versions of manipulatives that you print those on cardstock as opposed to plain paper. And that certainly is the case for the grammar symbols. The one exception to that would be the shape nets that are in the Math Kit 2 digital, because the student is going to be folding those to create three-dimensional shapes. So with that, simply a nice weight paper is good. Aside from that, go with the cardstock. It's going to be a better user experience, a nicer feel for the child, and a better tactile experience. We do also have diagnostic testing. So if you are trying to determine which kit level your child is going to best be placed into, the diagnostic tests from Language Arts Kit A as well as Language Arts Kit B are available for separate purchase from our website. Having attended the session, if you would like any of that testing at no charge, just give us a call and we can set you up with that. And they are the tests right from the books. In each one of the language arts books, there is a comprehensive test at the end that covers not just a sampling, but everything from that book. It is a multi-page test, so don't be surprised about that. But one of the things that you will see is that right next to the question, it gives you the list of lessons that teach the concept for that question. So if you're using this as a supplement for an older child who has some gaps from earlier on in the language arts foundation, you're able to use that testing to simply pick out the things that they need. And with that, again, that digital kit option is a popular way to go, because you've got all the printed material, the printable grammar symbols, and the music downloads. Okay, so that is going to wrap up the session for today. Did anyone have any questions that we did not get to during the presentation? And then as far as how much your child is going to practice each of those individual topics will vary from child to child. So if your child has some challenges with spelling, then spelling is what they're going to practice most often. Again, with that personalized approach to education, you are able to tailor that repetition to your individual child's needs. The word cards are also awesome for spelling, as are the word games, the 3x3 and 4x4. It's a really fun way of practicing spelling. And the letter tiles, which the vowels, just like the movable alphabet from Language Arts Kit A, the vowels will be in blue, consonants in red, so that those vowel patterns pop out of the words for them. Very helpful for identifying those letter patterns for both phonics instruction, as well as being a very effective spelling manipulative. And then having word cards. I used, when my kids were younger, I'd have them create word cards, and then we would put them throughout the house on physical objects. And it was great for being able to both read and then also practicing the spelling. So the red and blue circles in the kit, those are used in conjunction with the letter pad. So those discs are slit and they can slide on to the edge of your 3-ring binder or something like this, or even the edge of a desktop or tabletop. And they're used in conjunction with the letter pad. So, and that right now, we're actually going to transition away from those to letter tiles. And instead of the red and blue circles, the students will be using red and blue Sharpies, which of course would be included with the kit. All of our kits include all of the materials that are used. But they take those letter pads, the grids where they're either in print or cursive, creating a movable alphabet in their own handwriting. So whether you're using the circle kit, those foam circles, the discs, or simply the letter tiles, they're used in the same way. With the foam circles, the letter grid gets attached to the side, and it does include, the circle kit includes the tape used as the adhesive for that. So it's used as a spelling and phonics manipulative. There are not plans to extend the language arts past 4th grade. So we, just like it with the math, we are giving you that foundational piece. Now in the math, it does go higher simply because of the topic. So for math, we're covering pre-K through pre-algebra. And that is giving you that solid math foundation that's going to ensure success with higher level math. With language arts, we're giving you that pre-K through 4th grade, those foundational pieces. And then beyond that, what you want to transition to, there are a couple of programs that we recommend. Generally, ShillerLearning customers from Language Arts Kit B go into either a literature-based or writing-based language arts. And we do have a handful of those that we recommend. One of those, by the way, is Cover Story, where they are writing a magazine as their middle school language arts program. Sometimes when you get to those middle school years, especially with something like English language arts, that tends to not be multisensory and interactive. Of course, the Schiller Learning curriculum is, but kids get uninterested, especially after in many cases, you've had all of these years of grammar instruction, all of these years of spelling, and all of these separate, disconnected components. Uh, but with that cover story where they're writing the magazine, it's going to include all of those different elements, all the different styles of writing in a way that has meaning to the students. So that is definitely one of our favorites. And then that same company for high school has a program called One Year Adventure Novel. And for the high school composition course, they will actually write a novel. So that's really neat. And again, wonderful keepsake to have at the end of that. Yeah, that is also one of the benefits of not having an entire list of required literature. With that core of the 5 pieces of assigned, with being able to choose your own additional selections, if your child is at a higher reading level, but is still working on those composition and grammar skills, then you can choose a book that is a high school level of reading and be able to continue to work on all of those other things that are in the language arts kit B. Yeah, they do. They write book reports. Yeah, so they'll write book reports and different pieces of fiction and nonfiction, talks about what a sentence is, what a paragraph is, the desired structures of those individual elements. Okay, so it looks like we got to all of those questions. And again, if you have not subscribed to follow Schiller Learning on social media, you can find us at Schiller Learning on all of those channels. And brand new, we've been talking about getting on TikTok. Our TikTok account just went up, I believe it was last week. So if you are on TikTok, you can also now find Schiller Learning there. I confess, I am not on TikTok, but I did see it. So it looks great. We've got some exciting things planned for there. So you can follow us on social media, subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you ever have any questions about our curriculum or anything on homeschooling in general or personalized learning, do reach out. We are always happy to talk to you. If you want to discuss adaptations for working with kids with special needs, we can help with that also. And that is generally best done with a phone call, because over the phone, you're going to include things in that conversation that you wouldn't type out necessarily. So definitely give us a call if you are looking to make accommodations for students with special needs. We've had really good outcomes with talking about exactly where your student is at, what their challenges are, what their strengths are, and how you can modify the curriculum for those. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us today. As always, it's an honor to have you here with us, and we will be back next week, Tuesday at 2. Thanks, guys.